Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, if you're building an organization to make the world a better place, you know the good intentions, well, they only get you so far.
About halfway.
Right. The other half is all strategy, sustainability, and, sometimes a pretty tough reality check on your plans.
It really is.
And today, we are doing a deep dive that's specifically designed for what I call the engine room of impact.
The startup and small nonprofit.
Exactly. Our sources are, well, they're a collection of essential training modules, expert guides, articles, basically the must-haves for growth.
And it covers everything from marketing, which is so critical, to long-term operational sustainability.
It really does.
Yeah. This stuff is basically a blueprint for how to scale success. So our mission today is to pull out the biggest, most necessary pieces of that.
Okay, so what are we unpacking?
We're going to talk about why marketing is just non-negotiable for smaller groups, highlight strategies that, don't bankrupt you.
That's a big one.
It is. And then define the sheer breadth of training, from admin to leadership, that you need for a sustainable mission. It's about replacing hope with a solid plan.
I love that. Strategic action over wishful thinking.
Precisely.
And before we jump into the very first insight, we want to make sure you know exactly where to go for all the comprehensive resources that back this all up. For detailed educational videos, for training content that's made specifically for small and startup nonprofits, you should visit small-nonprofit.Courses.com.
It's a fantastic resource.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. And I think we have to start with what the sources call the foundational mistake for new nonprofits.
Oh, I know this one. The idea that marketing is a luxury.
Yes, something you can just postpone until you have more money in the bank.
And what's so fascinating is how hard the sources push back on that idea. They basically say, look, whether you intend to do marketing or not, you are marketing all of the time.
All the time. I think a lot of founders, they hear marketing and they just picture, expensive billboards or
ad agencies, glossy pamphlets.
Exactly. So why is this idea of constant marketing so different, even for an organization that has zero advertising budget?
Well, it all boils down to one word: reputation. Every single organization, just by existing, has a reputation, a public perception. And if you're not actively shaping that narrative,
then someone else is.
The community is. They fill in the blanks with their own assumptions. You might be doing incredible, life-changing work, but if you're not talking about it, you just become the community's best-kept secret.
Which sounds kind of charming, but it's not a good thing.
It sounds charming, but it's actually dangerous for your growth. Good marketing, it actively shapes your reputation with everyone, the public, clients, and maybe most importantly, your donors.
Make sure you're seen the way you want to be seen.
Exactly. Instead of letting people make it up because they don't have enough information.
So let's connect that to the organization's health. This constant intentional communication, it isn't just about feeling good, is it? It's directly tied to the lifeblood of the organization.
Oh, absolutely. Marketing or reputation management, whatever you want to call it, it is the engine of your financial sustainability.
Right.
If you can't effectively communicate your value, your impact, your trustworthiness, you just can't generate the support you need to do your mission. It's the mechanism that turns good work into funded work.
That makes perfect sense. So let's move into strategy then. The source material lays out these 3 foundational cornerstones for any successful nonprofit marketing. What are they?
They're all about emotional connection and proving your concept. So the first cornerstone is sharing stories of success.
People stories.
Yes, people connect with people with transformation, not with pie charts. The second is actively highlighting the specific impact you're having. It proves you're necessary.
Okay, stories and impact. And the third?
The third pillar is illustrating that your organization is, fiercely committed to the issue. This is what builds trust. And when people see those 3 things again and again, they go from being just observers to active participants.
And that kind of deliberate strategy, that starts to build what the sources call community visibility. And visibility is more than just being known, isn't it? It seems more tactical than that.
It is 100% tactical. Visibility, whether you're working in a tiny town or, on a global online stage, it is the mechanism that connects you to all the resources you need.
So clients, donors.
Clients, donors, volunteers, advocates who will speak up for you when you're not even in the room.
And I really like how the sources frame engagement. It says marketing provides a gateway to become engaged. Which implies that engagement isn't just something that happens to you, it's an opportunity you invite people into.
That's it, exactly. And for small organizations that need those lasting relationships, this is so, so crucial. Engagement isn't about getting a one-time online donation. It's about building lasting enthusiasm. When your marketing creates that easy, accessible gateway, people are much more likely to remember you, to share your message, and to get involved. And that shared enthusiasm becomes this powerful, organic movement that costs you nothing.
That brings us perfectly to the practical side of things, which is where startups really need the help. So, Section 3. The big assumption is that marketing needs a massive budget. But the sources basically say, nope, you're looking in the wrong place.
That's right. Marketing does not have to be prohibitively costly. The key is just to shift your focus away from expensive paid media, the billboards and magazine ads,
Right.
and toward high-value, low-cost tactics that leverage authenticity and reach.
Okay, so what are some of these specific inexpensive strategies that small organizations should be focused on right now?
The list they provide is really actionable. It's all centered on community building. So it starts with leveraging social media. You focus your time and consistent effort, not cash.
Makes sense.
Then there's effective, targeted email outreach to keep your community in the loop. Third, hosting free community workshops to establish yourselves as local experts.
That's a great way to use human capital instead of financial capital. What else is on that list?
Forming strategic partnerships with other groups to cross-promote. Creating easy, shareable content like infographics or short videos. And finally, really robust participation in local community events. That's where you put a face to the mission.
The common thread here is clearly authenticity. But there's this one concept they mentioned, the volunteer boost, that really leans into that. Can you explain why volunteers are such a huge promotional asset?
This is probably one of the most powerful leverage points a small nonprofit has. Volunteers are seen by the public as giving these incredibly trustworthy, unbiased evaluations of your work.
Because they have no skin in the game, financially.
Exactly. They are giving their time and energy for free. So when a dedicated volunteer promotes your cause to their circle of friends and family, that endorsement has a level of credibility that no expensive ad could ever buy. It taps right into social trust, which is the highest currency you have.
So if we tie this all together, the path for a small nonprofit is clear. You have to be strategic, prioritize visibility and reputation using these inexpensive, community-focused tactics.
Right. You transform yourself from being the secret to being the visible force for good.
It's about being effective, not just rich.
Precisely.
Okay, let's pivot now to Section 4, which is all about the operational and leadership knowledge you need. I mean, looking at the range of training mentioned in our sources, it is so clear that building a successful startup requires knowledge across so many different areas.
It is truly comprehensive. The journey demands expertise in strategy, metrics, operations, leadership. Let's start with strategy and growth. The resources really hammer home the need for multi-phase planning. They define it across 3 levels: macro, meso, and micro.
Okay, those definitely sound like business school terms. Could you break those down for a small nonprofit?
Of course. Macro planning is your big picture, your 5 or 10-year vision. The philosophical why.
The North Star.
Exactly. Macro planning is your medium term, your annual plan. What specific goals do we need to hit this year to move toward that macro vision?
Okay.
And then micro planning is the day-to-day, the weekly tasks, the quarterly operations. By dividing it this way, you make sure every single daily task, every micro action is contributing to the annual mesical goals, which keeps you on track for the macro vision.
It prevents that mission drift and chaos.
Totally. It makes that big vision feel much more urgent and achievable.
And of course, that strategy is useless if you don't know if you're actually hitting your targets.
Exactly. Which is why the training really emphasizes metrics and measurement, specifically key performance indicators, or KPIs. But the insight isn't just what to track. It's how you use that data to inspire action. A metric that doesn't change your behavior is just a number on a page.
Then you have the operational side. The actual running of the organization, which is where so many passionate founders get tripped up.
Yeah, that falls under operational efficiency. The sources highlight the need for really robust systems and processes, especially for micro nonprofits. This even gets into specifics like building remote nonprofit teams, which is a modern reality.
It is. Without that structure, passion just leads to burnout.
Every time. And speaking of founders and burnout, the leadership training touches on some concepts you usually hear about in the for-profit world.
Like what?
Well, under leadership and structure, there's guidance on leadership and management for entrepreneurs, and specifically concepts from the E-Myth.
Oh, Michael Gerber.
That's the one. The idea is to challenge founders to stop being just the technician, the person doing all the work, and start building systems so the organization can eventually run without them.
That is such a hard transition for founders who love doing the actual work.
It's the hardest. You have to shift from being the hands-on doer to a strategic system builder. The training also covers creating a powerful vision statement to make sure you have a compass guiding all those new systems.
And finally, what about the immediate financial needs? Cost management is always top of mind for startups.
Well, the emphasis there is on immediate, actionable strategies. So how to find and leverage free or heavily discounted services, where to find pro bono support. The core message is that you have to be aggressive and organized about sourcing free tools from day one.
What really stands out to me from all this is that building a sustainable nonprofit, it's not a casual thing built on optimism. It's a tactical entrepreneurial process that requires a ton of sophisticated planning.
Just like any successful business, it demands that founders commit to constant learning. Because if you're not mastering these frameworks, the strategy, the metrics, the systems, you're just fighting symptoms, not the root cause of your problems.
So what does this all mean for the small nonprofit founder who's listening right now?
I think the essential takeaway is that marketing is absolutely mandatory, not optional. And it has to be strategic, using affordable, community-focused tools, and all of that has to be supported by continuous learning in strategy and operations.
Right. To recap, strategic, low-cost marketing is what ensures your financial sustainability. It's what increases your mission's success because it actively shapes your story and fosters real engagement. It's the difference between doing good work quietly and maximizing your impact publicly.
Well said.
So let's leave you with a final thought, building on that need for deep strategic planning. The source material talks a lot about the danger of confusing symptoms with systemic problems. So this raises a big question for every leader.
Go on.
When you're managing a new nonprofit and everything feels urgent, not enough funding, not enough volunteers, how do you make sure you're taking the time to identify and tackle the right macro or mesosystemic challenges and not just putting a bandage on the most painful symptom you see today? That is the question that drives real lasting growth. And if you want to dive deeper into all these topics, from macro strategy to building actionable KPIs, and find those educational videos and more, all dedicated to small and startup nonprofits,
You know where to go.
you need to head over to non-negotiable.com.
Check it out.
Thank you for diving deep with us today. We hope this has given you some essential knowledge to build a more sustainable and successful mission. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.